And welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well this beautiful Sunday morning with my brand new overlay for the Sunday stream. Something pleasant to look at, aside from my fugly avatar. But there you go. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. But before I get into the wonderful world of the show, first off, thank you, Keeverdam, ahead of time. I'll be away from home today, so I won't be able to listen as much, but have a good stream. Thank you, Keeverdam, so much. It's very generous of you. Hope you have a good day. And also thank you for the GoFundMe links. You guys will find those at the top of the chat box for Shady Grin, Angry Illinoisian, and his kitten. If you have a couple of bucks to spare, they, their friends, and loved ones could certainly use your help. But with that, who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning for a beautiful Sunday stream? Somnamnul Nation, Matt Barnes, Keeverdam, of course, JMK, Lurking Gopher, Old Guy Gamer, Mike Savage, Ali, and who else is here? Anybody else here? Tall Person, Bridget, Pissed Off Shih Tzu. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you, good morning to you. Oh, so I was getting nostalgic yesterday. Now, last week we did the white as teacher and student thing, and I was considering doing a part 2, but the more I thought about it, the more boring those ladies were to me. I just, there's nothing more to learn there, I don't think. Now, if by some strange chance you decide to watch the second half of that stream, because I hadn't seen the second half of that presentation, and find something ridiculously interesting going on, let me know. Maybe I'll do a follow-up, but I didn't really feel like there was anything more to learn there. But that being said, like I say, I was getting nostalgic. Nostalgic for some of the kind of videos I did way back in the day. In the olden days when I first started my channel. And a lot of the videos that I did were corporate promotional videos talking about their various things, various initiatives and promotions and so on. And one popped into my mind of particular note, and that was Citibank, or Citigroup, or whatever they are. They had a talk, or at least clips of a talk one time, talking about their initiatives towards diversifying their workforce and how ridiculously, questionably legal what they were saying in public were. And that got me thinking, I wonder what Citigroup is up to. And so I did a little searching, and in the course of that, videos from other financial institutions popped up, and I thought, why not make it a theme day? Why not make it a potpourri day? So I have found 3 relatively recent promotional videos from 3 different major financial institutions on their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. I know, stunning stuff. So we have JPMorgan Chase, we have Goldman Sachs, and we have Citigroup. Those are the 3 we'll be covering. Each video is no longer than about 8 minutes. I think one's about 6 minutes. So in total, there's about maybe 24, 25 minutes worth of material, but from 3 different entities. Goldman Sachs I'm curious about because about, 2 years ago, something like that perhaps, they announced they would not do business any longer, or not take on any new clients whose executive boards did not possess at least one diverse individual, whatever that means, or something to that effect. So they were effectively dictating to their potential clients who they would and would not work with unless their executive boards or board of directors, I forget what it was, either way, had the correct aesthetic. And of course all of the companies jumped in the line because who wouldn't want to work with Goldman Sachs, I guess. Anyway, I don't know if that's going to be part of their presentation, but that's just one of the other things that came to mind. I did a video on that too. But either way, a couple more hellos, and then we'll get right into it. Fun Time Bats, Simon Willikins, Mike R., Random American, good morning. And Noah Asensio, if I didn't already say good morning. Good morning. McZemzem, good morning. All right, so let's get into it. I've cooked up a anthology. So there'll be 3 videos. There'll be a little break in between each one to give me a chance to recover myself. Also, the beginning and ending of most of them are silent. I took out some musical cues just on the off chance that that might cause me some copyright problems or something, so it'll be a little quiet before and after each one. But either way, this clocks in at 23 minutes and 12 seconds. But let's absorb the genius and the business wisdom of JPMorgan Chase to start off with. Thought I'd start it as the musical track ended.
The firm released its ESG report, which
ESG? Oh, I've heard a lot about that lately. Okay.
takes a look at the work JPMorgan Chase is doing in the environmental, social, and governance sectors to help create a greener and more diverse future.
Oh, good. A greener and more diverse future. I'm assuming you don't mean green as in money. Oh, no, of course you do. JPMorgan Chase is going to make a greener and more diverse future through ESG. Oh, the conspiracy theories, the WEF come to mind and all. Doesn't it? You guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat. Some emulation says business wisdom equals bisdom. Biodiverse, says Cougar Dam. Yes, possibly so. Biodiversity. All right, JP Morgan, what do you got for us?
To discuss the key points from the social section of this report, we're joined by Lucida Plummer, Global Head of Employee Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Oh, wow. Top of the pops here. Global Head of Employee Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. DEI. Boy, you know, I remember the days when it was just D&I, long before equity was included. Oh, those were the days. Okay, Lucida Plummer. All right.
Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Yeah, so diversity is a key part of the S in ESG. Can you first talk about the importance of this?
Absolutely. The social component of ESG really has always been about people and communities and addressing social challenges. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has become more of a focal point in the social component of ESG and really a way for us to keep our focus in how we're driving this agenda in the
Yeah, okay, so DEI, which is basically just populating your workforces with the correct aesthetics to make everybody feel better about themselves and purportedly avoid any accusations of discrimination, which in fact requires discrimination to execute. That's for the social good, is it? Yes, okay, it's a key component. Let me back up a little bit, I cut her off.
Of ESG and really a way for us to keep our focus in how we're driving this agenda in the firm. I think the best way to think about it is that everything we do starts from a place of creating a focus on inclusion and a culture of inclusion here at the firm.
Okay, let's keep track of how long we go before she actually says anything that means anything. Because so far it's been words without meaning. Let's see how long we can go before we get to something substantive. Irate Bear.
Some examples to highlight this. In EMEA, for example, we have our LGBT plus and veterans communities, employees that have partnered with a nonprofit to create leadership development programs for LGBT plus youth.
Ooh, like employee resource groups? That kind of thing?
In the community. We also have been recognized for having gender inclusive practices in many countries across Latin America. And in the U.S., many of our employees are part of our community impact program across our lines of businesses to help keep the focus on our racial equity commitment.
How? What does that mean? What does that look like? How do you keep your racial equity commitment? What actions do you take to fulfill that? I doubt we'll be told, but makes me curious.
Now let's dive into one of the big topics of this report, which is addressing the racial wealth gap.
Oh, the racial wealth gap. Okay. How are you going to address that?
What is the firm doing to address this issue and build a more inclusive culture?
Yes.
It's a great question. In 2020, JPMorgan Chase committed $30 billion over 5 years to supporting Black, Latino, and Hispanic communities and really driving capital into these communities and really creating a structure and focus on how we can really help these communities.
Okay, so you set aside $30 billion over 5 years. And you're focusing it on the basis of race. Okay, because obviously communities such as these need help. Okay.
What's interesting is that there's an internal and external component to this focus. Externally, it's about driving capital into the Black, Hispanic, Latino community, increasing affordable rental housing, and a number of other examples that we're doing to support these communities. Internally, it's really about amplifying the work that we have been doing as a firm to build a more inclusive workforce.
Well, that's the part that I'm more curious about, because there's laws in there about building a workforce around race and ethnicity.
For example, last year the firm launched 3 new centers of excellence in DEI. One around LGBT+, the Asian and Pacific Islander community, as well as Hispanic and Latino community.
So you're elevating certain demographics within your workforce on the basis of orientation, race, ethnicity.
I think the way we see it is that when we build our workforce and focus on our workforce, we're able to then have greater impact externally.
What does that mean exactly?
We've made a lot of progress, and at the end of 2021, we have committed $18 billion toward our $30 billion racial equity commitment. We're proud of the work that we've done there.
To do what?
Obviously, we'll continue to do more work.
More work, okay, yeah. No specificity. What do you mean? You spent $18 billion to do what? How did you increase the inclusivity in your workforce? What decisions did you make? In the hiring process, the promotion process, the retention process, how did you make this happen? What did those $18 billion do? You're not going to tell us, are you?
And can you speak more about why we disclose employee diversity numbers in this report and what's new this year?
Probably some kind of legal transparency, maybe, or try to avoid accusations of secrecy or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The reason we disclose employee diversity data is to ensure that we are being more transparent and that
we're held accountable. Please tell me the word accountable's in here somewhere.
We could hold ourselves accountable.
Yay!
Some of the things that are new this year, for example, we have highlighted additional segments of our U.S. workforce, for example, LGBT+.
So how do you determine which employees are LGBT+? You didn't put the Q in there, but either way, do you quiz your employees on what they do in their bedrooms? Do you require them to disclose their personal lives to you so you can up your numbers? If someone chooses not to talk to you about their personal life, what do you do with this person, might I ask?
People with disability and veterans. We've also added some additional data points on our board, our operating committee, and senior leaders. I think it's also important to highlight that in 2020, we created an accountability framework. And this is really about helping the firm hold our senior leaders accountable.
What does that look like? I've asked this question any multitude of times before. I always hear about being held accountable. We hold ourselves accountable. We hold our leaders accountable. What happens if they fail? Right? I mean, if they don't hit their numbers, if their percentage of this demographic or that demographic isn't where they ideally want it to be after a set period of time, what do you do with the person you put in charge of populating your workforce with specific kinds of people? Do you fire them? Do you fine them? What do you do? What does accountability look like, I wonder?
And evaluating them on the progress that they're making in supporting our firm, in supporting our priorities around DE&I.
Supporting our priorities. Do we hit our percentages? Just say it. Just stop dancing around it. You have a target percentage of how you want your workforce populated with specific demographics. How do you achieve that? By what mechanisms do you reach those goals or expect your leaders to reach those goals, if not to discriminate? maybe it's the poverty of my creativity or my imagination. I don't know another way, realistically speaking, to make those things happen unless you are employing discriminatory practices. I would love for someone in one of these situations, one of these videos, to tell me that there is some other means by which they are achieving this. Because I can't imagine that at some point along the pipeline, you're not divvying people up purely on the basis of their aesthetics.
Some of the components of this accountability framework really center around making sure we're incorporating all of this into our year-end performance and compensation assessments. Additionally, by disclosing our employee data, that really allows us and helps the firm understand what it is that we need to do, and more importantly, where we need to focus to ensure that we're driving toward the right outcomes.
The right outcomes. What is a right outcome? What does that mean? Are you going to tell us? Probably not.
And lastly, what do you hope employees take away from this report?
My hope is that they see what I see, which is the amazing progress that we have made.
Do you see what I see?
As a firm, as a result of our DEI efforts. Now, we still have a lot of work to do.
We have a long way to go.
But we've done so much to get to this point. For example, we expanded and strengthened our DEI organization and really put the right structure and process in place to ensure that we are driving our focus with our lines of business, with our clients, our customers, our communities, and with our employees.
Absolute pablum. She said absolutely nothing there.
So there's a lot of great work that we're doing. And I think the other thing I hope people walk away with is the sense of culture. So Jamie recently wrote in his annual letter to shareholders that...
Oh, this must be Jamie Dimon. I remember Jamie Dimon. He was on all those congressional panels and things after the financial crash and all that good stuff, right? Thank you, John Migda. Hi, Scribe. Hi, John. Hope your Sunday's going good. And thank you so much. All right, so what did Jamie, Overlord Jamie, have to say?
That we are navigating a challenging landscape, but collectively and individually, we came together to keep our business going. As far as the ESG report is concerned, I think we should walk away with that spirit and keep that as a reminder that collectively and individually, we can all come together to really create a culture of inclusion and really create a sustainable economy for all.
I mean, credit where credit is due for the corporate babble and repeating yourself in different catchphrases and buzzwords within 10 seconds of each other. I guess that takes some kind of practice. But, yeah, individually and collectively, we can come together. Well, if you're already collectively, then you don't really need to come... Yeah, okay.
Lucida Plummer, Global Head of Employee Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
A title that means absolutely nothing, apparently.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, perfect timing with the music. Boy, both intro and outro, just cut it right there. Yeah. All right, so there's JPMorgan Chase. That's our first on the docket. I forget which one is second here. Danced around the issue, said nothing about nothing, and accountability. So let's see how similar they are. That's something to keep in mind here. 3 different financial institutions, 3 different essentially programs and things. How much of the same rhetoric are we going to hear that kind of covers up what must be going on if they're actually hitting their purported numbers? I just find it fascinating. You know, these high-profile companies that purportedly have to operate under the same laws as everybody else, just kind of fancifying discrimination, right? And the other one I'm always curious about, how do you determine that your employee is one orientation or another? How much quizzing do you do? How do you find that out to add that to your numbers? What if it's none of your business? I don't know. Oh, here we go. At Citi, we are all responsible for fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion within our firm. Yes, we are all responsible for the greater good. Here are some of the remarkable people who take ownership of Citi's DEI efforts every single day. Okay.
For me, anywhere I go as a Black woman, being comfortable to be myself in any space is a privilege, and is something that I don't take very lightly.
Wherever you go as a Black woman, I mean, I guess everywhere you go, you are a Black woman, so you want to feel comfortable everywhere you go. I suppose we all want to feel comfortable everywhere we go. I mean, living in fear kind of sucks. Okay.
And I really do feel like I can be myself with my team members. They're just like very genuine, caring people. We're always supporting each other, like checking in on each other, making sure we're doing okay when things do get stressful. I love Citi HR. Everyone is really willing to help you get where you need to go. To reflect Jane's messaging, we do work better together. I love.
We do work better together. Okay. Well, so what does it mean? Do they highlight the fact of your skin color at work? Does that have any real relevance to anything? Or is it just relevant to you?
I love how collaborative HR is. Whatever your role is, like, there's always just this natural inclination to do things together. After George Floyd's murder hit the...
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. You have gotta be kidding me. Okay, tell me about George Floyd's murder and what any of that had to do with banking.
News. I, like many other people that look like me, was feeling just a lot of intense emotions. I had a manager that was caring and supportive, and she made sure to check in on me in a genuine way.
Because she assumed, because of your skin color, that you were, emotionally fragile? Oh, that's good to know.
Which I really appreciated. And so what had kind of worried me, what if other people may be the only diverse person on the team, and there's no one else on the team that can empathize with that experience? Yeah, because as we know, if you have a particular skin color, you know the experience of another person. You share some kind of, mental connection, some kind of hive mind. What if I'm the only diverse person on the team? Yeah, because everybody else is exactly the same. That's how I look at them. If I see the same skin color, obviously they're all the same person. They all kind of think the same way. They feel the same way, operate the same way. That's that's why Joe Biden and Donald Trump are exactly the same person. Yeah, that's great mindset to have. Yeah, tell me more. Part of why we went with an inclusion council was to make sure that everybody had that space.
An inclusion council. Oh, it sounds a little archaic. Let's see. I've missed a super chat. Pardon me. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. Hi, Scribe. Read your gay consultant tweet. Woof. My gay consultant tweet. Or read my gay consultant tweet? What? What am I missing? Johnny, I lack context. Oh wait. Are you talking about the little Twitter conversation I had with the person about Lisa Kudrow? Yeah, for anybody listening in the future, this is not going to make any sense because it's so dated, but I had this sort of Socratic back and forth with somebody on Twitter where Lisa Kudrow was saying, oh, the people who wrote Friends had no right to write any black characters into their show because they're white and they're not allowed to or something. And I made a comment about how, Lisa Kudrow produced a show back in, 2010 or something? I don't know, but it was called The Comeback. And she was the writer on the pilot and many of the episodes, and the show has black characters in it. And I was kind of like, I wonder if she'll disown her own work since she's a white person, and how dare she write about black characters. And then I had this gentleman appear out of nowhere and sort of argue in favor of creative racial segregation and people staying in their lane and so on. It was very Very interesting conversation. I dragged it out as far as I could to see how much this guy would confirm that he thinks that people shouldn't write or do anything that doesn't apply directly to them. He eventually caught on, I think, and blocked me, but it was fun. It was fun. And thank you again, John Migda. I identify as a black woman addicted to substances. Okay. Well, I'm addicted to substances too, like oxygen and water. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what to do about it, guys. I need an intervention. Okay, let me back up a little bit. Where were you going again?
Which I really appreciated. And so what had kind of worried me, what if other people may be the only diverse person on the team and there's no one else on the team that can empathize with that experience? Part of why we went with like an inclusion council was to make sure that everybody had that space, because I was lucky enough to have those people at Citi. Our first candid conversation was literally talking about inclusion.
Candid conversation? It wasn't a courageous conversation? Okay. Well, the first candid conversation was about inclusion. You know, this company that I've been working at and felt great and felt welcomed and everybody was supportive of each other and we got through our days and worked as a team. And then we needed an inclusion council because everything prior to that was just illegitimate or not enough, or it couldn't be that you just get along, but now we have to like sit around and talk about what we were doing before, but now put it into racial terms because a guy died. Okay.
Just point blank, like, how do you make another person feel included?
How do you make another person feel included? You know, I kind of learned that in kindergarten, but maybe that's just me. That
was one of the first conversations where we saw like that vulnerability, people talking about their experiences, you know, being diverse and joining like an all-white team.
Okay, what about being white and joining an all-diverse team? Did anybody have to talk about their sob story over that? Would you accept somebody talking about their sob story over that? What would you say to that person? Would you be able to empathize with that person? You know, going into a room of difference from them? I wonder how that conversation went. Why is this necessary? Why do I have to have a racial therapy session at my place of work to make you feel better?
Or just, you know, being first gen and coming to a company like Citi when no one in your family has ever had a job like this.
What? No one in your family has ever had a job like first gen? Okay, first and foremost, that makes me go way back to my Vampire the Masquerade days, because that's how it would be referred to the different stages of the vampire lineage. You know, you got the second gen, third gen. There's actually a couple of people named Jennifer, and they got nicknames like first gen and second gen, that kind of thing. Anyway, no one in my family has ever had a job like I have right now. So does that make me first gen? Does that make me special somehow? You know, if no one in my family had ever been a cashier at a watch store, does that make me first gen? What are you talking about? Never had a job like that before? Maybe I'm just not a recipient of, you know, generational nepotism in that way or something. You know, I didn't end up in the same business that my father and my grandfather were in. Is that what she's talking about? What does that mean? First gen.
As soon as one person opened up, like the floodgates open, you could almost sense the shift in the room.
Representation matters. It's so easy for us to have stereotypical understandings of...
Oh, is it easy? Stereotypical understandings, right? You know, I walk into a room and nobody can ever empathize with anything that has ever happened to me because they may not look exactly the way that I do. That kind of stereotypes. That, you know, that kind of division. What our previous speaker just told us is that nobody could understand her experience because they don't look like she does. What it's like to walk into a room of all white people. Oh, tell me more.
Of groups that are different from our own.
Groups that are different from our own. This is starting to make me really mad. Okay, first off, not groups, you're talking about demographics, but that aside, a person is not a group. They are an individual. unless they are, carrying a card and say that I'm a part of the, water buffaloes down at the lodge or something. Different groups. Racial identitarianism is poison. You walk into a room and see a person, and you decide that they are part of a group. You already know something about their character, about their mindset, about their beliefs and values. Tell me again about the dangers of stereotypes?
To have stereotypical understandings of groups that are different from our own. When it comes to racism, it's something that we grew up living with. We never talked about it.
Oh, did you? Well, that sucks for you. I grew up with the videos and the knowledge of what had happened in the 60s in the civil rights movement, and I listened to Dr. Martin Luther King, and I listened to all the other civil rights actors, and I listened to how the laws changed things, and I had listened to how people used to be treated under the law, and how that changed drastically over a relatively short period of time. And I learned that stuff was old-fashioned and unnecessary and meant nothing, and was just used as tools of division. That's what I learned when I was a kid, but I guess I was just a rare being or something.
We were always kind of told, keep your head down, don't, rock the boat, and just, work hard.
And just assume everybody around you was racist? I don't know. Thank you, Matt Barnes. I make people feel accepted by giving them a nickname that evolves from their name or a moment we shared, but I'm a weirdo that way. Yeah. There were so many cool handles people around me got just by circumstance, or just by, like, there was actually 3 Jeffs, right? And so Jeff 1 had the first Jeff was just Jeff, and then I forget what the second guy's name was. But when the third one showed up, everybody had to find a way to distinguish one from the other when they were talking to them in reference. So he became Jeff 3 instead of Jeffrey. He was Jeff 3, and that just became his name, like within like a week, and that was just it. And that was cool. And then he got his handle, and that was it. I always like that. I always like those organic sort of like nicknames, that at least those that weren't hurtful. Like if somebody was trying to make somebody feel like crap or something, or make fun of somebody, not very big fan of that one. But at the same time, there were names that started out as insult jokes that the person just sort of said, okay, I accept it. Right? It's sort of like, how the Big Bang, not the TV show, but the actual theory, referring to the theory of the theory of the beginning of the universe is the Big Bang. That was originally a derogatory term. That was a dismissive term. It's like, oh, you just call it's just a Big Bang happened, right? Except that became accepted within the community, so to speak, eventually, and now it's what people refer to it as. So you can turn it around, but it's nice when it's not outright an insult. So anyway, like with me, right? I forget who it was. It was either Gutenberg or Irate Alex. I think Irate Alex wants to take credit for it, and for the sake of argument, sure. But the first time somebody called me Scribbles, I was just like, that's cute. Sure, why not? It just kind of stuck, and I don't mind. It's nice. Anyway, tell me more about your assumed oppression and things. I mean, there was oppression, don't get me wrong. Depending on the time period we're talking about, sure. But you growing up, assuming that everybody was hating on you.
When these incidents first happen, and I don't know if this is all Asians, but it certainly was for me and a lot of my friends as well. We were almost shy to kind of talk about it because we're like, oh, we don't have it that bad. What actually inspired me was what I saw a lot of my Black colleagues doing, and I learned so much from them, including Ashley from my team, who took the initiative on starting the Thrive Network.
The what network?
For HR. It really created those safe spaces for our Black colleagues to talk about their experiences, to bring in allies into that conversation.
Allies,
That's
yes.
what inspired myself and Alice Huang and Karen Tsai to then come together to say, hey, why don't we start a conversation for Asian colleagues?
Hi, well, let's start even more divisions amongst race and ethnicity. in the company. Yeah, okay. Great. Yeah, let's put up these little invisible walls between us based on aesthetics. But let's create even more division out of a need to solve a problem. Okay.
I'm in the business of authenticity.
You're in the business of authenticity. Oh. So are you like one of those antique roadshow people that examines items for being legitimate? Oh, no, probably not.
The old school advice about leaving your sexual orientation or some element of your identity at the door, that's no longer acceptable.
Oh, it's no longer acceptable. Oh, so my personal life, the most intimate parts of my personal life, I can't leave at the door? Really? Oh, okay, so, well, then let me know. Tell me, how do you determine, I just asked this before, how do you determine in any particular employee what their sexual orientation is? How does that conversation go? Does that happen at the recruitment process? Does that happen at the hiring stage? You know, or do you wait till the person actually has all signed up and everything before you start interrogating them about what they like to do in the bedroom? No longer acceptable. Oh, okay. Well, gosh, I'm glad to hear it. So, can you imagine that? Can you imagine going to work and being required in some way, shape, or form to disclose your personal life to a corporation and an environment and a part of your day where it does not matter and should be irrelevant and under the law is irrelevant?
So I tell everybody, bring your authentic selves to work.
What if I don't wanna? What if it's none of your business? What if I want the line between my real life and my working life to be as distinct as night and day? So I can leave one behind and focus on the other when I'm not at the other. What about that? What about that mindset? Can I just do my job and go home?
Our authentic professional selves here at Citi, and I think that that's really important. I think my identity adds to the work.
Oh, your identity adds to the work. Oh. Really? Okay, what part of my personal sexual life adds to the work at Citigroup? I would love to have an answer to that question.
As a black woman.
Which says absolutely nothing about you. Neither of those elements say anything about you, but okay, speak as a black woman, as though those two demographics are definitive of anything.
As a mother of 3 black boys.
Oh, okay, more that doesn't mean anything.
There are things that concern me every day that certainly factor into my emotions, my leadership decisions, and even how I've dealt with situations most recently, as the topic of racial equity has been top of mind for many of us. I make sure that our managers and leaders understand what the experiences of our people of difference are going through, what impacts them, and that they're able to lead inclusively.
People of difference. I've heard this phrase before too. Finding new ways to divide and categorize people on things that mean nothing about their ability to do their jobs. What does any of that have to do with your ability to do your job? Good gravy. Thank you, Matt Barnes, again. Come, scribe. Bring your whole self to work. Yes. My whole self. I don't wanna. Professional distance. That's my choice. Doesn't have to be everybody else's. You know, some people, they have jobs or they have situations and they're perfectly fine bringing their real lives in some way, shape, or form into the workplace. If that's your thing, great. Requiring it of people, quasi-interrogating people over things that are not relevant to their ability to do their job? No. I think there's laws against that too in some places. But me, I like having a nice, clear divide. As much as I can maintain it. You know? It's not to say that I'm not occasionally thinking about work when I'm off the clock, or that I'm not thinking about real life when I'm on the clock. But as far as one or the other intertwining with themselves, as much as I can avoid it. And if you want to do that, you should have the option to do that. You should not be forced, pressured, peer-reviewed into giving up any more of yourself to your company, to your employer, than you absolutely have to. And it's really creepy hearing somebody saying it's no longer an option to leave that at the door. Ugh.
I come from a very small town in Mexico.
Okay, the sound quality on this is really quiet. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Should I... I'm going to turn down the background music a little bit for a second here, just because... yeah, I expected a little bit more of the corporate production teams at these banks to put out something a bit more quality, but here we go.
Very conservative. I went through a period of my life figuring out that I was gay, and there was nobody else to relate to. Going into the workplace, the story kind of repeated itself. Not being able to see or find other LGBTQ plus professionals or people in like higher positions that we just kind of gave me the message that didn't exist.
Or maybe it's none of your business. Good gravy. Why is it anyone else's business what someone's personal life outside of the workplace is like? If they are not comfortable with, or just not interested in, making their sexual orientation a factor of public record, why do you need to know? Oh, nobody else was around me who was gay. Well, first off, how do you know? And B, it's none of your business. None of your business. Good gravy. Listen to yourself.
One of the first things that I remember was the recruiter that hired me. This was back in 2018. She's like, we have the Pride Parade coming up in June, and we're going to be marching, so we'd love to have you join us, right?
Uh-huh. They just brought that up out of the ether? Were they pressuring you? Had you already disclosed of your own... I have a feeling you might have disclosed of your own volition, but let's say you didn't. Okay. What if you'd said no? I wonder what would have happened if you'd said, I'm not interested. Or just, I'll take it under advisement or something. What would the company have done then, I wonder? Because if it's no longer acceptable to leave those things at the door, did you have a choice?
And for me, that was like an aha moment of, okay, this is a place where I want to be, right? And then...
This is a place where I want to be. Why? Why? What are you doing at work where your sexual orientation needs to be accepted? Why can't you just be you? Right, what happened? What exactly happens at your office where your sexual orientation becomes an active factor of interaction between people? Okay.
And I came across the City Pride Network for Mexico Collaborate site, the City Diversity site. And that's when I saw that they had a vision, like their principles, what the policies were, what their stand was as far as like discrimination in the workplace. Oh yeah, discrimination in the workplace, like not allowing people to come to work without disclosing everything about themselves. I wonder how I'd be held accountable if I worked at Citi and just chose to come to work, do my job, and go home, and not take part in any of this extraneous stuff, not disclose anything about my personal life that I didn't feel comfortable with at all, not engage in any other extracurricular activities on some demographic agenda or another. I wonder what would happen to me if I just wanted to do my job. If I was just boring like that. If I left my whole self at home for when I got done with my workday. What happens then? And that to me was just very reassuring. I was like, okay, so if I were ever to face some type of discrimination for being myself, I know that the company will have my back. If you were to ever face any discrimination for being yourself, the company would have your back. Under what circumstance? Like within the company? Well, they'd be accountable for it if it was another employee or something, yeah. What do you mean elsewise? I don't know.
Being a diverse employer of choice.
What? What? Say that again. Sorry, say that again.
Being a diverse employer of choice.
A diverse employer of choice. What?
Means that we're showing up as thought leaders.
You're showing up as thought leaders. Okay, well, I could play some word games with that for a second, but those of you out there that know otherwise know I don't have to now. Thought leaders as diverse employers of choice. There's a lot of thinking going on here. Thank you again, Matt Barnes. Show us on the doll where keeping your professional life and personal life separate hurt you. Must be a wild office. Yeah, I have a hard time envisioning at what point in the course of an average workday at a financial institution one's personal sexual life becomes a necessary component. Anybody's doesn't. And I'm not just talking about one orientation or the other. I'm just talking in general. When, how, why, and why should it? And also under the law, it's not supposed to. If someone's orientation is a consideration for their employment, or for their even for their consideration for promotion, here's the other thing too. If you're going to start like metering out who you're going to give special attention to, who you're going to value as an employee on the basis of how much they disclose about their personal life, well, that's also against the law. Or at least rides the line of it. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert, but I got to think that if someone chooses not to participate in this full disclosure of one's personal life or beliefs or etc. in a company, and that they are then devalued within the company for promotion or any other kind of benefits, that's also not fair, right? It's like there shouldn't be a religious test. You know, tell us what you believe, tell us your religion, or else you're not going to get the promotion. It's the same difference. So I can't imagine what's going on at Citi if this is their philosophy. I can imagine quite a bit, but okay, tell me more about you being thought leaders in this obviously genius work environment.
In the diversity, equity, inclusion space, that we are equipping our managers to be inclusive leaders.
What does that mean? What does being an inclusive leader mean? I mean, I can imagine, but I don't know. By your definition, what is the difference between a regular, uninitiated manager and an inclusive manager? What is the line of demarcation between those two things?
That they're sharing credit for people's success, that they visibly support D&I at the firm, that they empower their team to make decisions, that they create an environment where diverse perspectives are not tolerated, but, valued.
You're talking about leadership in general. Take out all the buzzwords and everything else. Nothing that she described is any different than what a good team leader would be doing in the first place. Except for the fact that at some point you're going to have to make a decision, and it might not be one that everybody agrees with. It's like, your opinions are valued, not just tolerated. Well, I guess it depends on the opinion. It depends on the perspective. Do you have an informed perspective on the subject? Or are you just saying things? Okay, well. Anyway, let me turn back up my... I need my calming, jazzy music, at least a little bit, to set my nerves at ease a little bit here.
And that people know that they can contribute without fear of retribution.
Fear of retribution over... Give me an example of retribution in Citigroup. Like, I give my opinion, and there's retribution that comes my way. Like what's retribution? Like, my opinion not being accepted? Or being corrected? I have to wonder what retribution looks like in this day and age where someone looking at you funny ends up being called like an attack or something.
Empathetic leadership is one of the most important qualities that any of our leaders can have here at Citi. And that's something that Jane has shown and has spoken about at length.
Who's Jane?
My manager, when I said something along the lines of, yeah.
Oh, you again. I gotta turn off the sounds. Here's a note to the corporate guys who have billions and billions of dollars to spend. Get a camera crew and film your people professionally in front of actual microphones and not toaster ovens. Just, you're not lacking on funds. The webcam stuff really needs to go, or you really need to invest in better webcams or something, because good gravy.
Spoken about at length.
My manager, when I said something along the lines of, yeah, me and my boyfriend, he was like, oh, okay. And then we just went on with the conversation, like nothing happened.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine not making it a big deal. Imagine just being a part of every day and it means nothing. It says nothing. Oh, well, me and my boyfriend, that made me feel so included. It's got nothing to do with you. Get over yourself. You are not the center of the universe. Oh, my good gravy. Me and my boyfriend, like, oh, my God. Oh, that made me feel so good. Jesus.
Those are the type of little details that I think make me feel like I could be myself at work.
Oh, make you feel, because you're so important. Your feelings really need to be catered to all the time. Oh, well, great. Yeah, yeah, all right. Well, I'm glad that you're happy. I'm glad that you're happy.
Our team includes experts with diverse, multidisciplinary backgrounds.
Oh, you mean actual merit and gain skills and things? Oh, okay.
And feminist studies.
Oh. Oh, you had my hopes up there for a second. You had my hopes. Feminist studies. Oh, boy. Yeah, top of the pops right there. Feminist studies. Oh, that's a big advantage. That's a big advantage in the financial world. Was that a qualification for them to be in a financial institution, their feminist studies degree? Oh, Jesus.
Community development, big data, public policy, public health.
Public health. Oh, yeah. This is something that doesn't get talked about all that much. At least don't hear it that much. Public health. I heard this as a major, as a focus on several college students in some curriculum of fear videos I did way back in the day. And they'd always bring up public health, like I'm majoring in public health. And then they'd start talking about social justice subjects out the wazoo. And so public health seems to be sort of an umbrella term that sounds a lot more, I don't know, technical or skill-based or science-based than it actually is. It's just a cover for social justice initiatives. That's what it seems like to me. As many times as I've heard that phrase used, or people saying that they majored in public health or have a doctorate in public health, it's one of those things where I'm like, what does that mean? And oftentimes it turns out to be things like feminism, intersectionality, social justice, racial equity, etc., etc. But just underneath this sort of category that sounds fancier than it actually means. But sorry, that's just an aside. Let me back up a little bit.
Experts with diverse, multidisciplinary backgrounds in feminist studies, community development, big data, public policy, public health, economics, and even design activism.
Design activism? Okay, that's a new one to me. Okay, I don't know. I gotta look this one up somewhere else now. I gotta find out what design activism is. That like our restorative justice architects that we looked at previously? You know what? I think that might be it. Is it like restorative justice spaces and things like that? That kind of design? I think that might be it. Otherwise, it's some kind of very bizarre fashion show.
And this diversity helps us explore complex problems in new and novel ways.
Oh, does it help them with doing math in financial situations, which is what Citigroup does?
Collectively, our team brings a wealth of knowledge and lived experiences, and we are using our expertise to embed racial equity in the digital product development life cycle. How can
embedding racial equity. What does that look like?
How do you embed racial equity into the digital product lifestyle? Or lifespan, or whatever it was.
We empower city product teams to center the needs, perspectives, and experiences of Black and Latinx communities in the design, development, and deployment of city products and services.
Oh, what about Asian people? Do they not count? What about Pacific Islander? Do they not count? Okay, what about white people? They don't count? Okay, so you're making products specifically for people based on their race and or ethnicity. Financial products. Okay, like what? What is a financial product that has been tailored specifically to black people? And why is it so unique that it only applies or best applies to that demographic? Worldwide, because, we're only talking about skin color here, never mind anything else. I would love to know what the custom product is for specific racial groups within Citi.
I'm such a huge subscriber of, the quote, be the change you want to see in the world.
Be the change you want to see. Yeah, there's a lot of aesthetics going on here.
There's no one person in the world who can change everything.
You're correct. Well, I mean, there's that one individual who can change everything. You know who I'm talking about, right? Captain Ramius.
But really start to look at what is the sphere in front of you?
Uh-huh.
What is kind of that ripple effect that you as one person can have?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to build in all of our leaders to be able to solicit feedback and engage so that, we're all getting better and we create an environment of trust. So you should use your voice.
Yeah, nothing spells trust like, tell me everything about your personal life. You're not allowed to leave that at the door. Let me evaluate you on your skin color. Let me take you aside because I assume you know something about everybody who looks like you because you look the way that you do. Yeah, nothing spells trust like that, where you're diminished down to your lowest common denominator and then valued one way or the other on the basis of that. Also, feminist studies.
That's how, there's an environment where that leads to innovation. You create a healthy discourse, you have better outcomes, better decisions that are made.
Healthy discourse. Healthy discourse? Are you sure about that?
And you're really creating and innovating at that point.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
As it relates to some of the social injustices that are out there, it's a time to become educated. And I do think education in the history of a lot of these things is critically important.
What does any of this have to do with financial services? And I'm not being facetious or anything when I say that. I'm honestly curious what any of this has to do with financial services. Maybe there's an answer. Maybe there's a legitimate answer to that. I don't know. But so far I haven't heard it in this presentation. At no point have I heard, because we did this, we increased the wealth of our clients. Or something to that effect. Right? Because you're money managers. You're there to take care of and curate and presumably increase the wealth in one way, shape, or form of your respective clients. What does any of this do to increase the bottom lines of your clients? And not just in some sort of like amorphous metaphysical way. I'm talking like you can draw a line from, we did this thing involving racial equity and this person's wealth increased as a direct result. That's what I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear a success story. Why do we never hear of any success stories in these things? An active example of what they're doing and how it affects one and the other. Why is that?
And to take action. And I think if everyone kind of focuses on those things, somehow, some way, we'll be a better company.
Somehow, some way? I mean, somehow, some way. You should know. It shouldn't be a guesswork at this point. You've been doing it for years, right? You should be able to. You guys deal in numbers. You guys deal in tangible, observable results, right? Either the numbers go up or they go down. You make a choice and something works or it doesn't. Where's the guesswork? Like, okay, obviously not going to get an answer there. And yeah, no, I know. These are all corporate-produced promotional videos. There's not going to be any questions, downsides or otherwise, but conjures a lot of questions. It's very creative rhetoric. Okay, so that was Citigroup. We started out with JPMorgan Chase. And so our third and final look into the financial services world of DEI will be Goldman Sachs. Oh, Goldman Sachs. You ready? I'm ready. But for a moment, I'm going to go to you guys. Take a moment for some comments and such. Bridget. Scribe success would curtail a need for a group. I guess. You know, a group or a demographic or... I don't know. Renovatio, for the first time in history following gender and diversity pushes by the SJW progressive left, Silicon Valley has stopped its upward innovation trajectory. This ideology destroys innovation. Yeah, because you're focusing on everybody's aesthetics and personal lives instead of the work. Focus on the work. That's how you innovate. What does any of this have to do with innovating what? Maybe there's, like I said, maybe there's an example. Maybe there's a good example of, you know, some crazy innovation coming about by focusing on this stuff that actually improved the industry or found some kind of new way of doing things. I'd love to hear it. You never hear it. Let's see. Malademna. Scribe, stop being so binary. Decolonize your mind. Okay, it's too early in the morning for a pepper jack, but once I get there, my mind will be fully decolonized of brain cells or something. Woodcutter. Maybe you have to work harder for non-whites because of racism or slavery or something. I don't know. They won't tell me. I keep asking. Let's see. What else is here? Buck Fiden. Increase my wealth equals steal somebody else's earnings. That doesn't mean steal necessarily. You know, if I perform a service or sell a product and someone willingly gives me their money because I've fulfilled what they need, there you go, right? So I'd love to know from these companies, like, okay, you went through all this rigmarole, and how has that helped your clients? How has that increased wealth? Or even for the company, I mean, I just love to see, like, we did this thing and our profits went up to here, and we can draw a direct line from what we did to our profit increase, right? Not correlation, not just we did a thing and all of a sudden our profits went up. No. I want to see the actual proof that this has a benefit to the actual industry that they're operating within. I just make myself feel good. Oh, somebody said they had a boyfriend and suddenly I felt great. Like, what? Shadow Sonata, the answer is do not hire this firm. Well, here's the thing. Being pragmatic, if a company is doing all this goofy stuff internally, but they actually do produce good work, I might not care, right? Because what am I buying a drill bit for? Am I buying it for its aesthetics? No, I'm buying it because I want it to make a particular hole over and over and over and over again. I'm buying an outcome. The actual, you know, meaning or internals of the thing don't necessarily matter. So if Citigroup has all of this self-congratulatory, self-patting on the back stuff happening on the inside, the only question is, it's like, well, do I want to give my money over in encouraging that? Now, that might be sort of a moral, ethical question. Or do I just care about the outcome? Decisions for people who decide to invest. But either way. All right, let's move on to our last subject. Goldman Sachs. Here we go. Oh, well, okay, we got to get the end of Citi first. Okay. Goldman Sachs. The daily check-in with Goldman Sachs. Oh, do they put one of these out every day? Ugh. Katie Koch, Global Co-Head Fundamental Equity, Goldman Sachs Asset Management. Fundamental Equity. Fundamental equality of outcome. Okay. Talks with Liz Boyer, Global Co-Head Brand and Content Strategy, August 18th, 2020. Okay, so I think this might be the oldest video I got because it's like now like over a year old or 2 years old now. Okay.
Hi, Katie.
Hey, Liz.
Ah.
You lead our fundamental equity investing teams for Goldman Sachs Asset Management, and you're a big believer that diverse investing teams lead to better investment outcomes.
Diverse investment teams lead to better investment outcomes. Okay, that's the pitch. Or as I say, that's the wind-up. Okay, so now you're going to convince me, right? Show me that there's a direct line between the aesthetic makeup of the people involved and the outcome. It's not about knowledge. It's not about experience and skill and education, right? That doesn't lead to better outcomes in investment. Okay.
What's the business case for diversity in investing?
Yes, what is the business case? Give me the business case. Diversity in investing. Now, if you're talking about like diversifying your portfolio, that's a completely different thing. You're talking about diverse teams, right? You're not going to tell us don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
In our Goldman Sachs Asset Management equity team, half of our assets are run by really talented portfolio managers.
Really talented portfolio managers. Okay, so elements of merit. Okay, that's what I would want in my investment team.
Happen to be women.
Happen to be women. If they just happen to be women, then what does it matter? If it's inconsequential, if it's just an arbitrary element of their makeup as compared to their actual talent in investing, why bring it up? It should be irrelevant, shouldn't it? Oh, but tell me why it's relevant.
So we are very focused on diversity as an issue of profitability for us and for our clients, and not just equitability and fairness.
Do they just happen to be women because you selected people based purely on their on-paper talent, skills, and experience, or do they happen to be women because you chose them because they're women? That's really the important question here. You say they just happen to be women, and that should be the end of the statement. That should be the end of the presentation. So why am I suspicious that they happen to be women because you just happen to choose them because they're women?
When you bring in plurality of perspectives, it really creates a competitive advantage relative to the market.
Right. So they don't just happen to be women. It's not an accident of fate or something. It's just not how the cards laid themselves out. No, you brought them in because they were women. Somewhere along the line, you had a gender filter. Well, thanks for clearing that up in a very obscure way.
And framing this in economic terms, framing diversity in economic terms, is something that I learned the importance of early on in my career on the back of some work I did with Dina Powell and the 10,000 Women Program.
The 10,000 Women Program. Oh, okay. I wonder what the requirements were to join that one.
What I learned is that for 1,000+ years, women have been underutilized and overexploited in the developing world. And
in the developing world, that's probably true. Yeah, given certain cultures, beliefs, and so on. That's likely true. Yes.
Really little progress was made to fix that.
Yeah, because it's really hard to fix an entire history and people and culture and religions and heaven knows what else that is ingrained into people's societies and other nations. Okay, so what does that have to do with Goldman Sachs and modern investing?
Until developmental economists and organizations like Goldman Sachs pointed out that there's a tremendous return on investment available if we, in fact, educate women, give them connections to capital, we can increase GDP over the long term.
Oh, you mean if you take 50% of your population that you currently have undereducated and underinvolved in things, and then you educate them, suddenly all ships rise, go up with the rising tide. What amazing math that is. What does it have to do with their gender? Nothing, except in the cultural aspect. But yes, it's true. It's true. If you take an entire swath of your population and decide to devalue them, and then suddenly you invest in their abilities, suddenly everybody comes out better. It's true. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And that is not a bad pragmatic argument to make. And if you could actually change cultures of the different parts of the world's minds on that subject, on the basis of a profit motive, not exactly the most altruistic motive, but hey, whatever works. So sure, on that score, I will agree with you. If you can appeal to someone's greed to eventually better the lives of everyone, go for it. Go for it.
By enfranchising women. And it really struck me how important it was to make progress on that issue, to root the argument in economic terms. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very much the same as investing. Yes, of course, it's an issue of equitability and fairness to have.
No, business and investing is not about equitability and fairness. It's got nothing to do with that. But just to pull back my sarcasm slightly, I wasn't being sarcastic just then. Yes, if you can appeal to someone's greed effectively, but for an outcome that is overall beneficial, and it really only benefits everybody in the long run, but you can get past their social mores or their cultural values that are, let's just say, they're self-injurious. It's like, well, I'm going to be discriminatory against this swath of people because this is just the way we've always done it. If that's your only argument, that's not a very good one, obviously. Right? But if you can appeal to somebody's greed to open up the gates and let people better their lives, well, I don't care if you feel offended by it, but if you also gave into your greed and somebody else gets a better life out of it, hey, there you go. So sure, on that basis, she's not wrong. And if that's the tack that she's going with this, then okay, sure. But then it comes back to the whole investing teams on this side of the aisle. What does that have to do with anything? Nothing. So conjoining something that is a reasonable argument for the betterment of people, but then coming back and saying, and then over here we select people on the basis of their demographic location. Yeah, that's the other side of the coin that doesn't work for me.
Have diverse investing teams. It's also incredibly true in the way that we come at it, is that if you build diverse teams, diverse and inclusive teams.
Diverse and inclusive team. Build diverse and inclusive teams. Not talented teams, not expert teams. I just want to hear expert teams. Because nothing about diverse inclusion tells me anything about the expertise of the people managing my money.
Those teams will have very different perspectives relative to the marketplace and competition, and ultimately that plurality of perspective can help create a competitive advantage.
How about bringing in people who have had experience in different industries? On their merits, on their actual experiences. You're not talking about that, are you? No, you're talking about specifically so far gender, which says nothing about someone's experience in life or their knowledge of a particular part of the world or anything else. Not expert teams, diverse and inclusive teams. All right, well, I'm really hoping that you'll show us an example, I know I'm not going to get it, of here's Team X that is not diverse and here's Team Y that is diverse. And these are the only factors of difference between them, and the diverse team made $1 zillion more than the other team.
That will put us in a position to outperform. And I think holding that to be very true is one of the reasons that we've been successful in building diverse investing teams.
Oh, I'm sure you've been successful in building diverse teams, because if your only concern is the aesthetics of the people populating the team, it's not that hard to do. That's why it's so stupid, because it's the lowest common denominator of consideration, one person to another. There's not a lot of nuance there. Do you have genitals of this or genitals of that? Do you have skin color of this or skin color of that, etc.? Have you built expert teams? How tough is it for you to build an expert team?
So what does the data show about the correlation between diversity and investment performance?
Yes! What does the data show? What is the correlation? You notice there's a word she left out there. Causation. Because correlation does not inherently indicate causation, does it? Interesting you left that part out. Yeah, show us the correlation. Good gravy.
The evidence is very clear that companies that score highly on ESG characteristics of diversity and inclusion.
ESG character. Oh, here we're back. ESG again. Okay. Companies that score highly on the ESG assessment of things.
And high in terms of workplace quality outperform. And that's true across most sectors, and it's really very true across the last decade. So
Are you going to name any companies? Show us how Goldman Sachs has improved on the basis of this. Show me the actual line, one to the other, causation. Not correlation. Right? You know, because, yesterday the sun was out and I stubbed my toe. So I guess if the sun's out, I'm going to stub my toe, right? And it's correlation.
That's the evidence. And we've actually aligned our investment process in terms of ESG integration, and then also the way that we do stewardship and engagement for our portfolio companies to align with those research findings.
Such as what? For those of us that aren't in the know, what are the ESG checklist research findings, whatever? You just talk about them offhandedly, but you don't tell us what that means. What's the correlation? Where's the outcome? Give us an example.
And so as an example, we've really pushed for gender diversity on boards. In 2019...
Yes, in 2019, you guys at Goldman Sachs said that you would not work with any other company unless there was at least one woman on the board of directors or whatever. Basically guilt-tripping and or forcing companies to select people for their boards on the basis of gender. Which is, legally, I'm not quite sure where that falls into the whole employment thing, but ethically speaking is certainly questionable.
We became one of the first major asset managers to come up with a voting policy whereby we voted against the nominating chairs of any U.S. publicly listed company that we owned with no woman on the board.
And that's the only requirement for them to be on the board. Good job, Goldman Sachs. Really setting that bar high for excellence.
So we voted against about 200 companies, and 40% of them have since added a woman to the board.
Yeah, imagine that. If you hold the proverbial financial gun to somebody's head to do something, they're likely to do it. Because what is a bigger loss for them, right? Putting somebody on the board who may or may not be qualified to be there, but just to fulfill some aesthetic requirement that you have to make yourselves feel better, or the potential financial loss of not being able to partner with you. Yeah, so putting a woman on the board, it's a cheap price to pay. Is that how you want it to be? Because that's how it looks.
Obviously not the only reason that happened, but I think we've...
Wait a second. Let's start over, shall we?
And we've actually aligned our investment process in terms of ESG integration, and then also the way that we do stewardship and engagement for our portfolio companies to align with those research findings. And so as an example, we've really pushed for gender diversity on boards. In 2019, we became one of the first major asset managers to come up with a voting policy whereby we voted against the nominating chairs of any U.S. publicly listed company that we owned with no woman on the board. So we voted against about 200 companies, and 40% of them have since added a woman to the board. We're obviously not the only reason that happened, but I think we've been a big contributor to that.
We're not the only reason that happened. You made it a requirement, and then they healed too, but you're not the only reason that happened. Well, they didn't have women on the board before you voted against them, right? What other reasons were there? except your financial blackmail, your public shaming? What other reasons could there be? You just highlighted those companies as inherently sexist by your standards, or the ESG standards, or whatever. So they're sexist, and you won't work with them. Golly, what other incentive could they possibly need? Yeah, you successfully blackmailed 200 companies. Good job. Wow, that's really impressive. Oh, but it's not the only reason. Now, you don't want to take all the credit, because that would seem almost like insidious or something, right?
And we've also taken that policy global in 2020. We're now voting against the boards of any publicly listed company around the world that does not have at least one woman on the board.
Great. That's great. At least one woman. That's your threshold. You got to have at least one woman. Nothing else about her. Just got to be a woman. Okay. Well, what if one of those existing board members comes out and declares themselves to be a woman? What do you do then? What do you do then, I wonder?
So we voted against around 700 companies and about 1,400 directors, because now we're voting against the whole nominating committee.
Oh, are you shaming the whole nominating committee as inherently sexist now, huh? Okay, that's great. Wonderful.
And we should have results on that early next year, so we'll have to check in on that again.
Yeah, we'll have to check in and see if our blackmail, public shaming, corporate pressure to heel to on our gender requirements took effect. Big smile. Big smile.
But this is, we do this. Why do we spend this time on stewardship and engagement? Because, again, the evidence is really clear that diverse teams outperform.
No. You haven't presented any evidence that diverse teams outperform. You just said it. So all that a company needs to do is put a woman on their board, and suddenly they'll be a more, outperforming company than they were 5 minutes prior? Okay, your first point about making the financial or economic argument to other countries or cultures about educating and uplifting women simply on the basis of, the cultural barriers that prevented them from being uplifted in the first place, that has some merit to it. Appealing to someone's greed for a greater outcome in general is not necessarily a bad way to go. But then you completely jumped back into, we're only going to elevate someone on the basis of their gender. And only then will we consider you a valuable partner if you conform to this completely ridiculous and arbitrary requirement we put up. You're not impressing me, if that was ever your goal, but I don't think it was. And you still haven't presented any evidence, even corollary evidence, that quote-unquote diverse teams lead to better outcomes. Why not? Why can't you point to something? Right? Before we started this initiative, our profits were here. After we started this initiative, our profits were here. It wouldn't be proof, but it'd at least have some corollary to it, right?
And having a diverse board is not the answer to everything.
Oh, it isn't? Well, it's the answer to whether or not those companies are going to get a chance to work with you anymore, or not be publicly shamed anymore and put into stocks in the public square for being sexist. Well, okay, well, what else is there?
For sure, and we certainly need to have more than one diverse individual on a board.
One diverse individual. That's what being a woman is now, huh? Being a diverse individual. Are you listening to yourself at all?
But it's a place to start.
Oh, it's a place to start.
And what about recruiting and developing women in investment roles, which has been such a challenge for this industry? What does it take to make progress there?
What does it take to recruit women into investment roles? I guess just employ sexual discrimination in your hiring practices. I mean, I don't know what else there is.
Yeah, important question, because the evidence is obviously clear that diverse teams will outperform, and yet we don't have the diversity that we'd all want to see in the investing industry.
We don't have the diversity we want to see. Okay. All right, so what is your proposed solution to that problem of aesthetics?
And what we found on our team is that one of the most important things to achieve is having a senior woman in seats of influence and authority. And
Right, because if a woman can't see themselves in the success they want to engender in the women, then they can't achieve, right?
Risk-taking. This addresses something called the representative bias, which is that people believe like if they can see it, they can be it. And so they're going to be attracted to organizations that are diverse because that's really the best example that organization values diversity of thought.
No, what? No. Nothing you have said has anything to do with diversity of thought. Unless you're going to start attributing quality of thought to someone on the basis of their gender or their race or whatever else. In that case, the problem might be you. Now, you're talking about you want employees who value gender, who value aesthetics in whether or not they want to join a company. You're looking for sexists. You're looking for racists. If you're talking about, if I can't see it, I can't believe I can become it. Value of thought. Again, are you even listening to your own rhetoric here? You can't escape it. If you're going to devolve people down to the most common denominators and arbitrary factors of their makeup, and then make that the focus and make that the value factor, you lose. Nothing you say after that makes any sense or absolves you of this original sin. Because here's the thing, at whatever point in your employment process that you employ or you install the gender filter or the orientation filter or the racial filter for consideration, that is where you are doing wrong. Doesn't matter if it's the beginning or the end.
And we've achieved that on the gender lens. We have more to do in other spaces, which hopefully we can talk about. But I will tell you that one of the gratifying things of making progress on these diversity metrics is that eventually you can stop talking about it as much and it doesn't take up as much time because the diverse talent actually comes and finds you.
Diversity metrics. So you're operating on a quota system, are you? See, it's public disclosures like these that just baffle me as to why institutions like Goldman Sachs or any of these others aren't immediately investigated for civil rights violations. I mean, they're telling you right now that they are divvying up and selecting their employees on the basis of things outside of merit that are clearly written as no-nos in federal law. And yet here they are. It's just like, yeah, well, we have these metrics, diversity metrics. And we've already determined that at least one aspect of diversity is gender, which is clearly in the law as something you do not assess someone's employment on the basis of. But here we are. Why? Why is this?
And that's just a really awesome place to be.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
So as an investor, how do you incorporate diversity and inclusion considerations in thinking about the investment decisions that you make?
Yeah, let's.
At Goldman Sachs Asset Management, we're really focused on identifying sustainable business models. And that means a lot of things, but one important thing it means is companies with cultures that value diversity and inclusion. And so why is that important? Because
you want to feel good about yourselves, value diversity and inclusion. Do you understand, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know, that having a diversity, equity, and inclusion program at a company now is just a checkbox? It's just a coat of paint. It doesn't mean anything anymore. They just say they have it. They publish some pamphlets or something. They have a couple of meetings just so they can say that they've got it there, because now it's just a nothing requirement. You just have to say that you have it. You have to go through the motions. Right? I value diversity, equity, inclusion. And what does that mean exactly? Telling you what you want to hear. What is the actual performance of the company? What is the expertise of the company? What were their profits over year? Oh, that's less important than if they declare themselves to be focused on DEI, which says nothing about their industry, their ability, their output, nothing. But okay, you're the investment geniuses.
Companies that are able to reflect the societies that they're catering to, I think they'll be more successful.
You think they'll be more successful? Oh, so it's still a question mark. Okay.
They're going to be able to come up with the right products.
Oh.
They're going to have a marketing message that is authentic. And they'll be able to maintain the very critical tie between brand and trust.
Oh.
And it's one of the most sought after demographics for any company to cater to is the millennial consumer.
The millennial consumer. Well, that's even more generalized. That's just a period of time in which you were born. That's just an age range. It's got nothing to do with anything else.
Millennial consumption, of course, is going to increase somewhere between 10 to 15% over the next 5 years, while baby boomer consumption will decrease by somewhere between 5 to 10%. So this is a very important cohort for any company around the world.
Yeah. All those baby boomers are dying, and the millennials are still growing up into being, adult age consumers. Yes. Well, now you're talking like a financial person. Now you're talking like an investor. And what does any of that have to do with anything?
And that group of individuals is very focused on looking for companies that align with their own values.
Right. Millennials all have the same values, and they're a group, are they?
And in fact, if you looked at recent research, there was an Edelman survey that came out that said 60% of millennial consumers would buy or boycott a brand based on their reactions to racism.
That I probably believe. I've paid attention to Twitter. I've seen how successful this racial assessment culture has embedded itself into the younger generation at present. Speaking as now apparently an old man at 43, but whatever.
So again, this is something that we look at for companies because it's a pertinent issue of addressable market and profitability.
So talk more about racial diversity and investing. What needs to happen to make meaningful change there?
Yes, please.
The industry needs to make a lot of progress to achieve racial equity. And, Goldman Sachs has been very honest as an organization that we need to make progress as well.
And what does progress look like? How do you affect those changes at Goldman Sachs? I already know the answer. You already told us about diversity metrics, but hey, you want to give us some more red meat for this one?
And so we're very focused on this from an investing perspective. And just to give some context on the broad market, if you were to take the Fortune 500 companies just...
Please, oh, come on. The CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies... Really, 500 companies out of all the companies in the nation, just the top successful ones. Yeah, which says, okay, this is a very clumsy way of not answering the question.
Just in the U.S., we've only ever had 18 black CEOs. And in fact, we've actually only ever had 2 female black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Oh, female black CEOs. What about female CEOs just in general?
That's a pretty dire statistic.
Is it? It's a dire statistic. Why? Okay, well, how would you change that? What would you require? I mean, obviously, we already know what commends someone to the position of CEO in your mind, first and foremost. Never mind their years of experience, never mind their expertise, never mind their education, never mind any of that. No. All irrelevant. Both the people you are commending and the people you are deriding. Nothing they've ever done in their lives is as important as the skin they're in and the genitals that they possess. That's it. Good for you. Boy, oh boy. 10 out of 10.
But when we dug into the data, we did learn something interesting, which probably won't surprise a lot of people. But in all of those instances, there was black representation on the board. And so just the work that we've done to improve gender diversity on boards, we actually want to expand that work to work on racial equity on boards. But we do have a problem.
Is that problem a legal one? That you're going to start requiring boards to have people on their boards on the basis of race? Would that kind of look a little weird?
And the problem that we have is a data problem.
Oh, it's a data problem. It's not a legal problem. It's not an ethical problem. It's a data problem. Okay.
Because companies are actually not required to disclose their racial demographics across the entire company, but including the board.
Oh, okay. So you want to change it so that companies have to report on the racial makeup of their companies and their boards. You want to make this a factor of assessment. I can believe that you do. What are you going to do about it?
And in fact, if you look at the broad U.S. market, just take the Russell 1000, only 20% of companies do actually report both gender and racial demographics. So what we're going to be working on really hard as investors for the rest of this year and into 2021 is engaging with companies to encourage them to have better workplace demographic disclosure.
Okay, and let's say they disclose and the numbers are not to your liking. What do you do then? What do you require of them then? How do you solve for that problem of yours?
Because we believe that if we can measure it, then we can hold those companies accountable.
What does holding a company accountable for the racial spread of their workforce look like? You're going to start withholding business from people because they don't have the right racial mix to your liking? I mean, you might be able to get away with the one woman on the board thing somehow, but I'm not quite sure how well that's going to go over. What if you have a business that's predominantly black? You know, are you going to shame them for not having enough white people or Asian people amongst their number? How are you going to set this metric? What is going to be the standard?
For the progress that we want to see them make.
The progress that you want to see them make,
And again, it's really important to us that we get broader representation on boards and across workplace demographics because it's an issue of profitability for our clients.
Which you haven't given us any evidence of, but just said so.
Again, companies that do this better, we think will outperform over the long run. And
you think. That's the second time you said that. You think. Why is it a guess? Why is it a gamble? Shouldn't you know by now?
That's why we continue to be focused on this issue.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
Yeah, no, this was great. This was an absolute laugh a minute. Boy, oh boy, I'm just, I'm grinning ear to ear over this. Okay, well, there you go. That's our trinity of financial institutions and their DEI initiatives, variously and otherwise. A couple more comments from you guys, and then we'll wrap up for this Sunday. Oh, whoops. Sorry, that wasn't a comment to me. Renovation, what about disabled black, female black trans Islamic CEOs? Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. A guy in his room. Hey, how's it going? Yes, and honestly, that's what these companies are going off of. Twitter reactions, memes, and ESG. They value the instantaneous outrage of a tweet more than just sound business advice or anything else. You know, it's all about feelings and not offending anybody and on and on and on, or what they're being told is offensive. Yeah. Lexi Mads, I can't remember who coined it, but I thought it was brilliant, so I ran with it. Oh. What are you guys talking about? It's also out of context. Standard athlete, why is this person using that ridiculous voice? That's not her authentic voice. I blame the webcam or Skype or Zoom or whatever they were using. Let's see. What else? Oh, here we go. Lexi Mads. When I was a kid, I wanted to do everything the boys did to prove girls could do it too. Keywords, do and prove. I didn't want to be given anything. I would hate being handed anything like this. Yeah, what do you learn by being handed a medal for nothing? Right? Being put on a board just because you're a woman. That's it. And knowing that you're only there because you're a woman. That's the other part. Here's the fun thing. And here's a question I guess I have. Here's a question. And maybe somebody out there who knows the law better than I do can answer it. So this scenario, Goldman Sachs says to Company X, we won't do business with you because there's not a woman on your board. Company X then says, oh, okay. and they select a woman and put her on the board. Can that woman then sue that company for gender discrimination? I mean, she'd have some pretty good evidence, wouldn't she? Right? Or would she be able to leverage that threat internally for something more than what she earned? Gotta wonder. Because here's the thing. Discrimination, even if you're doing it benevolently, is still discrimination. Still putting yourself at risk. This is what Goldman Sachs has been promoting. Now, that video was from 2020 or 2019 or something, so they've been going on for this with 2 years extra. Who knows what's happened? These are the questions I have. Lexi Madge, you always pick the most random shit to highlight. This is the stuff that nobody pays any attention to. There are these fluff piece, self-congratulatory promos the companies put out that have like 30 views or something on their own YouTube channels that nobody hears about, nobody knows about. And they're all public disclosures. This is all stuff produced by the companies, putting it out there as like it's a good thing. But all it does is conjure so many questions, so many problems, and nothing apparently happens as a result. There are no consequences. You know, not even, I mean, I don't know. I'm not an insider. Have there been any investigations into these companies for these publicly disclosed policies of discrimination? Blatant, or at least indicative violations of federal law again and again. I just find it entertaining that this stuff is out there and everybody in these things feels so comfortable just saying, oh yeah, you know, we have diversity metrics and we focus on this, and you know, you're not, you know, leaving your whole self, leaving your authentic self at the door is no longer acceptable. Those kind of things. Anyway. Let's see, and one more. Blue Eye Scream 76. With this investment strategy, GS won't be able to afford to purchase politicians anymore. I don't know about that. It's a name, brand, power, etc. They can get away with a lot of stuff with all the leverage that they possess. And Keever Dam, I missed most of it, but I'll watch on replay later. Well, I hope you find it as enlightening as I did, I suppose. Either way, everyone, I'm going to call it here. I love having these uncomfortable yet fun conversations. I call them fun comfortable. You like that? That's going to be my competitive product next to Glenn Singleton's Courageous Conversations. I want to have fun, comfortable conversations. That sounds like it should be the title of a new talk show or something. The Fun, Comfortable Conversation. And like just bring somebody on and like bring up something that's completely uncomfortable to talk about for the sake of comedy. Oh man, I might have just got a new idea. Okay, we'll think about fun, comfortable. Either way, everybody, thank you again for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the GoFundMe's pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you so much for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. Programming note, Sunday, August 28th, 10 a.m. will be the premiere episode of a new series that I hope is very successful, based on its diversity. It's going to be called Living on Borrowed Crime. It's a series in which I will have on different true crime content creators from YouTube and elsewise to discuss the genre and their work and cases that interest them and all that kind of stuff. For the first episode, I have scheduled Inhuman Form, Stay Awake, and All Fuzzed Out to join me. So looking forward to that. Again, August 28th, Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. That should work. And looking forward to it. Hope to make it successful. Hope to do at least one episode a month and get up different content creators from all over the sphere and hopefully attract others as they hear about it, and granted that it's a fun time. Either way, everybody, have a good rest of your Sunday. Have a good rest of your weekend. Have a good week ahead of you. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.